was trying to think of one of my sons standing up here singing with me. Oh my. So I'm starting a series based on the book, The 5 Gifts of Abundance, because we've had that class ongoing, and it's so rich and so powerful. I just didn't want all of you that hadn't had an opportunity to take the class to miss some of the ideas about it. So the 5 Gifts of Abundance is an acronym. GIFTS is an acronym for various aspects of leading and living an abundant life. So gratitude, intention, forgiveness, tithing, and surrender. Now I know that not all of those things sound like a lot of fun. And yet, when we talk about an abundant life, it's not just about finances. It's about living a life that is balanced so that all aspects of your life are in harmony. Your career and your relationships and your hobbies and your fun and your laughter and your social life, all balanced and in harmony. I heard the greatest line that I want to share with you, and I think it sort of clarifies what I mean when I say it's not all about money. And the line is this, and I have no idea where I read it, where it came from. It just came across my awareness from someplace. If it wasn't for money, we'd all be rich. And isn't that the truth? We get ourselves so stirred up around it, around money, that we allow so much of our life to be unhappy. But what I want to talk about today is that first aspect of an abundant life, and that is gratitude. Now, I know I've talked about gratitude before, and you probably are going to hear me talk about it a lot forever, because it's the engine that drives a joyful, happy life. And it's a metaphysical, spiritual point of view, because we know that what you put out is what you get back. There's just no question about that. That's the law. That's what the whole essence of our faith and our belief system is built on. There is one, and what you put out is what you get back. So I told you that I went to the camel races, and this is the reason that I went to the camel races. Camels have always held a really important part of my family history, because my sister was having just this dreadful time in her life. Her whole life was just crashing around her ears. Crashing. And she was watching, I think, Gaga Den or something like that on TV. And there were those pathetic camels laboring across the desert. Sad. All mangy looking and falling, their hair all falling. And my sister said to herself, things may be terrible, but be glad you're not a camel. And it stuck. It stuck with our family. And so when anything ever went wrong or bad, or, how it all happens at one time, sometimes, at least be glad you're not a camel. So gratitude is so vital for a rich, healthy healthy life. When I was the drug counselor for the Women's Recovery Academy, and these are women who had been imprisoned or incarcerated for drug-related issues, and they also had dual diagnosis, some sort of mental health diagnosis. And I taught them to be glad there weren't a camel. But every morning, before we started class, I would ask them what they were grateful for, to give me their gratitudes. That's what they called them. And the lesson was how simple. When your life is just pretty narrow, gratitudes can be very simple. Such simple things as being grateful to wear street clothes instead of orange jumpsuits. Be grateful to have 3 meals. Be grateful to have mustard on the table. Be grateful to be able to see your children maybe every 2 weeks. Be grateful for jail. Be grateful for prison, because you're not on the street. Simple. Gratitudes. Not, that you can be grateful for a Lexus instead of a Volkswagen. Grateful that, I don't know, the grand things that we begin to be grateful for. Aaron talked about winning a car. That'd be something to be grateful for. That's a big thing. So we can start with our gratitudes from the big things. The wow things. Winning a car. Getting a good job. Having a new relationship. All of those big things. And then as we get good at that, then we sort of inch it down. And we maybe get to be so that we're grateful for the not so big things. I'm grateful for my vision, and I'm also grateful for the medical procedures that allows me to keep my vision. I'm grateful that I can hear. I'm grateful for my grandchildren. The big, huge, amazing things that we're grateful for, the ordinary sorts of things that we're grateful for. And then the simple things that we're grateful for. Being able to breathe in and breathe out. The smile of a stranger on the street. The simple things. And then we get better at it, and we maybe come to the place that we're grateful for the things that are not so wonderful. Maybe the runny nose. And then we get to the place where we're grateful for the things that we could judge as terrible and horrendous. 9/11. A mass car crash. and holding that space in our heart to be grateful for it all because it is one. And we may not know from this narrow little human place what the gifts are. But trusting and knowing that there are gifts and being in gratitude for even the stuff that seems horrendous. Trusting that there are those gifts underneath them. So what are some of the gifts of 9/11? 9/11 caused this country to take a look at itself in maybe a more objective way. 9/11 allowed ourselves to have a sense of more patriotism, to really honor our country in a way that we maybe hadn't been doing in a while. 9/11 gave us an opportunity to acknowledge the necessity of forgiveness and to hold our heart open in ways to people and countries and situations and circumstances that we hadn't had an open heart around ever. So there were huge, enormous gifts from 9/11. There's a book that I love, and it's called The Power of Kindness from Piero Ferrucci, who is a philosopher and also a psychotherapist. And he tells this story about a stonemason. And the stonemason hated his work. And he longed for a time when he could just be so wealthy that he could do whatever he wanted to do and he wouldn't have to work ever again. And he held that vision. And one day, a voice came to him and said, "You can have anything you want." And suddenly, miraculously, he had all of the money he wanted, he had all of the leisure time he wanted, he could do whatever he wanted to do. And that was wonderful. And he was doing whatever he wanted to do and having a wonderful time, and a king rode through the forest, and he thought to himself, wow, I'd really like to be a king. And whoosh, immediately he became a king, and he was powerful, and he was wealthy, and he was having a wonderful time as a king. And then a sort of a restlessness set in. And he looked at the sun, and he thought, wow, I'd really like to be the sun. Whoosh. He became the sun. And he was strong and powerful, and the whole world cycled around his moods and his movements, and he was really powerful. It was good to be the sun. And from that lofty place, he looked down and he noticed that clouds were blocking his way, interfering with him. And he thought to himself, if I could be a cloud, I could just drift around. And you can tell that this guy's kind of lazy, right? Just sort of drift around and be puffy, and people could sort of look at me and be dreamy, and contort himself in all kinds of pictures, you know, and people were looking at the clouds that he was and saying, I see a dog, or whatever. And then pretty soon, he sort of came together and became Rain. You've heard the story.
No, I haven't.
And so he started to drip down from his cloudliness. And he fell upon this huge boulder, this big, huge stone. And he thought, that stone is really strong. I think I'd like to be a stone. Whoosh. He became this huge stone, and it was good. He could be warm, and he could be strong. He could absorb the sun. He could just kind of lay around, and nothing was expected of him, and he really sort of liked that. So for a long time, he hung out just like a stone. Big old rock. Piece of granite. And it was good. And then, in the distance, he saw a figure moving through the forest toward him. Sort of old and hunched up, but with a great big hammer. And it was a stonemason. And the stonemason took the hammer and hit that stone and shook him all up. And he thought, wow, now there's a lot of power. That stonemason has control of my destiny. I'd like to be a stonemason. So you can see he had gone full circle. This time, he was grateful to be a stonemason. He'd seen so many different ways of being in the world, and yet he discovered that being a stonemason was a very powerful thing to do. And he became grateful. The hammer sound against the stone became music to him, and being a stonemason became an art. And he dreamed at night of the cathedral that his stones were going to build. And he became very grateful for who he was as a stonemason. So, in what way am I, and what way are you, like that stonemason? Wishing and wishing and wishing for something more, something else, being different, when in fact, right where you are, doing what you do, is a very powerful place to be. And just being in gratitude for that, holding your heart open for that which you are, right here, right now, knowing your own strength and your own power. So, gratitude is such a basic spiritual tool. Just being in gratitude. Now, in this class that I've told you about, the 5 gifts for spiritual abundance, it's suggested that we keep a gratitude journal. And I think that can be difficult. We get sort of blinded to what is really wonderful about our lives. And we get blinded to what really is so basic to be grateful for. That we start looking for the big stuff and we miss the little essence. So here's a suggestion that I'm going to make to you. Rather than keeping a gratitude journal, perhaps if you kept a smile journal. Just those little things that give you pleasure, that make you smile. For me, it is Lulu when I get ready to feed her. And oh my gosh, how thrilling that is. You know, she just is thrilled. And she makes like a little body circle. Yeah. Just so excited to be fed. And that makes me smile. Maybe it's a dandelion pushing up through the crack in the cement. That always makes me smile. Coming here and seeing each one of you makes me smile. So, keeping a smiling journal. And I know it makes me cry, but my tears make me smile. Because for me, when I think about gratitude, when I feel gratitude, that really does feel so much like love. Have you ever noticed that? That the gratitude really is love. And what you put out is what you get back. Living a balanced life of abundance is about noticing those minuscule little things that make life so rich. Here's another thing that makes me smile. I don't know, maybe nobody else has had this experience, but you know, we used to eat mush in my family. Anybody else have mush? Yeah, we used to eat fried mush. Now, here's what makes me smile. Mush boiling. It goes. And not only does mush make me smile when it's boiling, it reminds me of my grandma's snores. Because she used to snore. Just like mush boiling. So that always makes me smile. Life is good. It's rich and it's full. And I invite you to keep a smile journal. And remember that if it wasn't for money, we'd all be rich. We're rich in this community. We're rich in this philosophy. We're rich in our friendships and our companionship. I love you all. You make me feel so. So I would invite the practitioners and the ministers to stand and join me as we just wrap this room in love. I want to remind you of the prayer box here. If there's things in your life that you haven't gotten to the place that you feel grateful for yet, I invite you to put a prayer request in and let these lovely people, these powerful people who know the truth about you, hold you in consciousness for a week. And then just stand back and watch what happens. So join me as I turn within. As I allow myself to go to that place where I feel gratitude for all things. Gratitude for life. My life, which is an expression of spirit. Your life, which is an expression of spirit. Gratitude for this community. Gratitude for this philosophy. Gratitude for the sun. For the clear air. For the love that is wrapping this room. I give thanks for it all. I know that God is. And that's all there is. And I'm grateful for the good that is God and God that is the good. It's inseparable. I'm grateful for clarity of understanding that even in the dark spaces, God is. That the dark has no power against the light. And I give thanks for that understanding. I give thanks for this community that I know as Circle's Edge. And I give thanks for the harmony and the peace that weaves itself within these walls. I'm grateful for the love and the laughter, the sweetness that fills this room, because it is all God. And so I take my word and I place it consciously in the law, knowing that good and only good can return to me. And I give thanks. And I surrender to the wisdom of spirit that works mysteriously, magically, magnificently in this space and in this place and in this community that I know as Circle's Edge. So I invite you to join with me as I anchor that truth into this space, as I declare it done. And I invite you to declare with me by saying, and so it is.